Fox News is going to do the world's most obvious 180 in recorded history on the issue of church and state. Let's watch.
Health and Human Services pushing churches now to promote the president's health care law. A sample announcement says, quote, "We have chosen this Sunday as Get Covered Day at insert your church name here." This is what the administration wants churches to put out. "We will have a presentation on the health insurance marketplace." You know what? It's not the first time religion has been used to promote Obamacare. Last year, the insurance marketplace in D.C. quoted scripture on a press release. It said, quote, "The body is a temple and it must be insured." But not everybody is bringing it to the pulpit. Join us right now is a pastor who refused to partner with Obamacare at his church down in Dallas. He joins us, Robert Jeffress. Good morning to you, Reverend.
Good morning, Steve.
So the president needs your help. What's your message to him?
You know, when most people come to church, they come to hear a timeless word from the Lord, not the latest word from Washington, D.C. And I realize many bureaucrats confuse themselves with the Almighty, but there really is a difference between the two. Look, the problem I have with this is Obamacare is not an idea or a suggestion. It's a governmental mandate. And if you don't participate, you get fined. If you don't pay the fine, you go to jail. And I just don't think the Church of Jesus Christ ought to be an extension of the federal government to enforce its edicts.
Would you look at that? All of a sudden, Fox News, of all places, cares about separation of church and state. Now, remember, this is the network that argues for Christian plaques in public schools. In fact, I looked back in the SecularTalk archives on YouTube, and I found that one segment we covered this, and one of the hosts says that Christianity in public schools is, quote, benign. So they argue for Christianity and Christian plaques in public schools. They argue for the 10 Commandments in various courthouses around the country. They argue for creationism being taught alongside evolution. They even used the Sandy Hook massacre of children to suggest that the reason it happened is that we took prayer out of school. They had Mike Huckabee on who argued exactly that, and did they push back? No, they did not. And now, all of a sudden, they care deeply about the issue of separation of church and state. Well then, Fox, I have a question. Why did you support Rick Santorum? And why did you hire Mike Huckabee, of all people? In fact, Huckabee has said exactly what the people at Fox News really think about the issue of separation of church and state. Watch this.
I have opponents in this race who do not want to change the Constitution. But I believe it's a lot easier to change the Constitution than it would be to change the word of the living God. And that's what we need to do, is to amend the Constitution so it's in God's standards rather than try to change God's standards so it lines up with some contemporary view of how we treat each other and how we treat the family.
They hired that guy. They gave that guy a show. They gave that guy a giant platform to discuss his views, and they endorsed it as a network. He just said, literally, let's change the Constitution to fit God's law. And now today, all of a sudden, oh no, go separation of church and state. No, I don't want to hear anything about healthcare and churches, because separation of church and state, we believe in that to our core, except when we literally hired the guy who said replace the Constitution with God's law. Now, they're such jokes, man, and they're such hypocrites. They flip-flop all over the place depending on whatever is politically convenient for them. That's when they flip-flop. So if it comes to a message from Jesus that's anti-torture, all of a sudden Christianity's out of the conversation, and Fox News becomes the biggest war hawks and warmongers and crazy people you've ever seen, where they flat out argue for the use of torture. When it comes to war, are they out there quoting scripture and about Jesus and how he was a pacifist? Fuck no, they're saying, let's go into Iraq, let's go into Afghanistan, let's go into Syria, let's drone people all day long. Yes. So where's your Jesus message and your feeling of Christianity when it comes to that issue? It's nowhere to be found. Why? Because you care more about politics than you care about religion and interpretation of religion. You only use Jesus when it fits your political message and your political ideology. And this is why nobody should believe you either way. Now look, how about us? Are we consistent on this? Well, yeah, because guess what? I don't think the churches should be involved in any way, shape, or form with Obamacare. See, Fox, this is called consistency. I genuinely believe that church and state should be totally separate. There's no, but then maybe on this issue, or maybe on that issue, or maybe because we like that one, they could get involved in that one. No, the church should be totally separate from politics. Politics should be totally separate from the church. That includes for things that I dislike and that I like and that I'm neutral on. It doesn't matter, man. It's not about me. It's not about my opinions, but it's not about Fox, and it's not about their opinions either. Keep church and state separate on all issues. But what you're seeing here is what? Fox News is being politically convenient. Because when it comes to the opinion of Jesus Christ on healthcare and on how we should treat people collectively as a society, now all of a sudden they say, no, on that issue, Jesus was a flaming liberal, so obviously separate church and state. But on issues where the Bible is really terrible and hawkish and they want to kill people, on that, then we can mesh them together again. We'll do that.